Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Man of Culture YouTube channel. My name is Billy, and today I will be taking you on a video tour of my anime 3x3. Now, before we get into this, I want to talk about what a 3x3 is. So basically, the concept of this is where if you go on the internet and you decide to kind of take 9 anime or maybe anything else, it could be movies or music or manga or books, but specifically, it's typically used for an anime fashion where people like to take 9 of their favorite shows that don't have to be their favorite per se, like absolute top peak must-watch series that they absolutely love, but it's more of a scale of what sort of taste someone has. And I just want to do this video to do something easier because I do have 2 really nice and scripted videos coming up here, so stay tuned for those. I'm going to do one on Prey and one on Steven Universe, which I watched both of those fairly recently, so those are going to be pretty fun to get out and do. So with that being said, let me pull up my image here. So basically, going through this, I took about a good hour, 2 hours to kind of get the shows I really like. Now, okay, so here's my list. So starting off over here, right about there. So that show is called Kill la Kill. Now, Kill la Kill is by far one of my absolute favorite series, honestly, possibly my favorite. I really love the whole weirdness and absolute craziness that the series goes through. Studio Trigger did a brilliant job at animating how the series flows, and the action scenes are just top tier. I love it. And really, the story as a whole really has a lot of grit to it, and it's really grounded, yet it still has a lot of good humor moments. I feel like they do a great job with humor, even in a very serious setting that the show is portraying, being a sort of world where Hitler won with the Nazi regime, and it's this weird future type thing that kind of takes the idea and just turns it into some weird Japanese. If you've seen anime, you know how kind of weird these Japanese type stories can get. And anyway, so moving on, next up we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which right here in the middle of the top row. What can I say about JoJo that hasn't been said before? It's a freaking amazing show. I love every aspect of it, and it has some very weird things to it. Obviously, it's a very, might I say, bizarre adventure, but it's a show that really has a lot of depth for something that is so simple, yet Araki did a really good job at portraying this world and taking these characters and turning them to something that you can really appreciate and enjoy in this world. After the first 2 parts, I really love the stand system. It's really interesting how he goes in and just completely rewrites the way the power system of the series works, and I really think that does a lot for the show in how it actually functions and plays out, and just builds more character depth going forward. And honestly, once again, a lot of great comedy. What can I say? I'm a sucker for comedy in these kind of series. But up next, we have a show called Clannad After Story. Now, that right there is it. So basically, Clannad After Story is, well, it's the after story of Clannad. Basically, it takes place after the main series and is honestly the better part of the series. Most people agree with that, including myself. I do enjoy the first part, but I completely understand why people prefer After Story because it's a lot more emotional in terms of what's being portrayed, and it's a lot more real and grounded, I feel like, because it goes on a whole story of these characters trying to find themselves in a new world after getting married, which is really cool to see because we get to see these characters all throughout their high school lives into their future lives, and it's a whole storyline. I'm not going to spoil anything with any of these shows, at least I'm going to try not to for the most part. With this video, I'm really just trying to go into detail on why I love some of these shows so much, and yeah, Clannad After Story, great series. Up next, we have Your Name, which is right there. So Your Name is a show, or a movie, rather, that I watched fairly recently. Now, never has a series or a movie or anything in anime really affected me in that sort of way. It's really a good movie about growing older and understanding who you are as a person in the world. I feel like over the years that's something I've really come to understand, finding my own in who I am in a person and what I want to do. And honestly, being able to help people is my sort of dream, and I feel like this show kind of goes into that sort of idea of helping people because that's the right thing to do. I mean, just finding oneself is definitely something this movie's very much about, and I really loved every moment about this. The romance was pretty fun too. I did like the romance aspect in the series, and I do feel like it did a good job at portraying that side of things when I typically don't like romance, which I did mention in the video. Probably link that in the description below since it is mentioned in this one. Up next we have... Shoot, I'm trying to think. So up next we have... Oh shoot, what's it called? The Fox Sail anime. Now, I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now because I don't have them noted down, and sometimes I've watched a lot of anime throughout my life, even in the few 18 years I've been around, so I've watched a lot of shows. Spice and Wolf. Now, Spice and Wolf is what it's called. I don't know why it took me a second to remember that, but Spice and Wolf is a series I really love, not because it's particularly difficult to understand or goes into a lot of depth with what the story's portraying, but it just does a really good job at taking you into the perspective of a shop owner on a journey. And it does a really good job at taking that simple concept and just going with it. I really like the way the story flows and how it goes through to the end, especially going through to the end of season 1, seeing all the different story aspects play out and the different characters come in. It's just a fun show that I would highly recommend. Okay, so up here on this side right here, we have Neon Genesis Evangelion, which I don't really like mecha, okay? Like, mecha for me is a genre in anime I tend to stray away from. I don't like Gundam so much. I tried Code Geass, but that didn't work so well for me. Now, that is a show that really changes a lot of things as far as mecha series go. I feel like Evangelion did a lot of things other mecha series have not. Like, it goes into more mental sort of issues, I suppose you would say. Like, it goes into topics like depression and all those types of things, which I personally have dealt with myself in the past. So being able to relate with these characters like that was definitely kind of interesting to see portrayed in the anime sort of fashion. Of course, it's a mecha, so you see giant robots punching each other and it's pretty nuts and things blow up. And now the best part about Eva, though, is the fact that nothing means anything in the end, because the author himself, or the guy who wrote the show, basically went out a few years ago and said that all these quote-unquote symbolisms are just things he thought looked cool, other than how it was written. How it was written, he did mean some deeper things with it. But as far as symbolism and the anything else in the art style, he didn't really have a lot going on there. He just kind of thought that things looked cool and he kind of just went with it. So up next here we have Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, which, other than Konosuba, of course, I do love Konosuba. It should probably be on my 3x3, honestly, but Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation it's just a great story. It's basically, as far as I understand it, I've only watched the first season of the anime. I'm not caught up with any of the online story version, but I know what the anime is, or the story as a whole. I understand the premise that it goes from a regular isekai type story into a very deep story with a lot of emotional depth and character development throughout. And even in just the first season that I've seen so far that's out, I'm really excited to see where the series can go and expand from here. Like, in these 24 episodes that we have now, they already did so much of a good job at exploring a world that we don't know anything about. And I'm so excited to go forward with it. And, yeah. Okay. So, up next we have Dodo Hey Dodo, which, the new version. I haven't seen the original version from like the 60s, I believe. It was a long time ago that the original version of the anime released, and I think the original manga came out even before that. Although the manga might have came out after the original anime release. I'm not entirely sure, but one thing I do know, the anime was fantastic. I feel like it took a lot of the same ideas as Demon Slayer and added more of a story-driven premise to it. Now, it just takes that whole idea of sort of, I mean, it's not the same brother and sister kind of thing. I mean, there is a brother and sister relationship in there, but it's not the same type of thing as Demon Slayer. It's a lot more of a more grounded and gritty take on that sort of story, I feel like, where someone's trying to reclaim who they are and then has to just go and battle a bunch of big monsters, you know? Just some fun times. I really enjoyed the series. Had some really good story moments, especially the fight between Hyakimaru and his family. That was really great to see, and yeah. So, next up we have Samurai Champloo, which is right there. So Samurai Champloo it's a samurai show. It basically takes a samurai concept and mixes it with a sort of lo-fi beatbox type music, and I really love the way it just blends those two characteristics into one big conglomerate, and it really works and flows so well. Like, watching the first few episodes, you're like, what am I watching? But then you get into it and you're like, wow, this is really cool. So, yeah, it's a really good show that hooks you in. One final thing before we go. Konosuba. So, in my last several videos, you've probably seen that I have this blanket behind me. And that's for a reason. Konosuba is amazing. I really love most of the things that the show does. It has funny characters, great story. Well, story isn't really that important to Konosuba, but the story is there and it is pretty entertaining. They do a good job at writing these characters and slowly developing a world. Like, especially the different relationships between our four main characters, being Kazuma, Megumi, Aqua, and Darkness. I love the way they're sort of built up as things go on throughout the show. And I'm so hyped to see further takes on it with season 3 coming out, I believe, next year in 2023. So that's really exciting. So with all of this being said, thank you guys so much for joining in today's video. I know it's a bit of a longer one for me, and I only take a few minutes typically, but I just wanted to share with you some of my taste on anime. I enjoyed making this video, and if you guys do consider subscribing today, I would highly appreciate it. And while you're at it, hit the like button and post notifications so you do not miss a single one of my uploads. Typically post on Wednesdays, by the way, so keep that in mind. I'll probably try and start posting more in the future, but for now, this seems to be the schedule I'm more comfortable with. So anyway, I will see you later. This has been awesome. Peace.